faster and more intense. That was his main direction. He just wanted us to speed through it.
George is notorious for saying, after a take, do it again, faster, more intensity. He certainly said to me, was, terrific, Tony, can you do it again faster? But that's it, I didn't get more intensity. I didn't think 3PO with more intensity would be bearable, do you?
Alright, well, hello everyone, and welcome to Faster and More Intense. I'm your host, Shiloh Cameron, and joining me, as he does every single week, without a break, Mr. George Costa.
Hello there, everybody. How y'all doing tonight?
You're from the South this week, huh?
Yeah. I had something else planned, a whole Simpsons quote thing, but I'm just like, be a little over the top.
Yeah. Well,
Next time, maybe.
Yeah, you're in New York, so South for you means, what, Delaware?
No, South means south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Alright, well, so this week we do not have our normal show. So we talked about last week, there is no Rebels, and there is no comics, which is a very odd week, seeing how for the past, 10 shows we've had Rebels and comics?
Basically, yeah. Yeah? Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere with that, but...
Yeah. So, instead of that, we're going to be doing the Star Wars, a couple of reviews of other Star Wars stuff that has come out. One recently, which was the Star Wars Lego Droid Tales review. Star Wars Lego Droid Tale just came out on DVD. I believe it aired on the Cartoon Network.
Disney XD.
Oh, it was Disney XD. Okay. Aired on Disney XD. And then also, we're going to be talking about the 2003 Gennady Tartakovsky?
Yeah, you're good enough.
Yeah, the Clone Wars series. So that one was kind of interesting. We talked with Henry Hammond about that, and both you and Henry had a very special place in your hearts that show occupied, apparently.
Oh, very much so.
But before we get into that, I guess let's just talk about some news we had this week. George, any noteworthy Star Wars news?
Yeah, so this isn't an official announcement, but some, if you listen to, say, the Dejeric Table or other collecting podcasts out there, you'll hear people complain about the lack of super articulated figures nowadays. Well, 3 new ones just hit eBay, so they're not officially announced, but the next 3 we're going to get are Captain Phasma, Han Solo in his Starkiller base outfit, so like the heavy jacket, and then Leia in one of her gowns. I think it's the one that you see on the TFA poster, the final one. Phasma looks really good. Han, I think, just needs better paint apps on his face. And it's probably not a final figure. Leia does not look stellar, unfortunately. So hopefully, it might not be the final version of the figure, and the final version will have better paint apps. But yeah, not looking great right now.
Are these the 6-inch?
No, these are the 3 3/4.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah, the 6-inch. I mean, we've already gotten the Phasma. The other 2, not so much.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, because I was like, why are they making another Phasma? Because now, is this super articulated?
Yeah, that's why it's a big deal.
Okay, so we've already gotten a 5 POA Phasma, right?
We've gotten 5 POA. We got Phasma. I don't even know if we got in this layer, this Han yet, actually. But yeah, Phasma was like wave 1 or 2 of both the 6-inch and 5 POA.
Yeah.
So she's taken a little while to get to the market in 3 3/4 super articulation.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't know when this was announced. But Pablo Hidalgo has a book of it's called Star Wars Propaganda: History of Persuasive Art in the Galaxy. And so I feel like I've heard of this before, but it's coming out.
Sound familiar, yeah.
Yeah, it's coming out in October. Pablo tweeted about it earlier this morning. It looks like a German site, maybe has some pages of it. And obviously you can see them now. I think they look pretty cool. I'm excited. They look like in-universe documents, at least to an well, I mean, they're obviously in-universe if they're propaganda. But the whole book looks like it might be an in-universe document. So it kind of reminds me of some of the other books he did, or not he did, but that were done, like The Essential Guide to the Force, which, was written as an in-universe document, Essential Guide to Warfare, same thing. I think those were both Jason Fry and Daniel Wallace, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. And the Book of the Sith, Path of the Jedi, Bounty Hunter's Code.
Yeah. This looks like it'll be a different scale than those. I mean, you are right; those are in-universe books. But those are, were marketed towards kids. I think. I mean, obviously, they're. I enjoy them. They're good for basically anyone. But this definitely looks like it'll have, maybe a slightly older slant to it. Certainly doesn't look annotated like those did. I kind of view those things as a class of their own.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be pretty exciting.
Yes, let's market this incredibly complex dissertation on the use of propaganda in our empire to children.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because I commissioned some propaganda art back in the day from Star Wars that I have hanging up. So I'm excited to see a whole book of it.
There's also something else that went on in the Star Wars fandom-verse, went down yesterday, the day before, and that is one of the greats of the Star Wars podcasts, the ForceCast, has been shut down. There was a lot of controversy surrounding it, a lot of firestorm on the internet, but if you want to hear kind of the at least one of the main hosts' reasons behind everything, he sits down, he explains most of it. 2-hour podcast over on Random Chatter. Eric Blythe basically kind of sets the story straight as far as what happened. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely go recommend and check that out. But Faster and More Intense kind of actually has a connection to the ForceCast. I've told this story a few times before, but I might as well tell it again. Me and the co-founder, Matt White, who is right now, he's kind of on a extended hiatus. He went off to do a kind of a solo project of his own, the Dejaric Table, which you mentioned earlier. And they just put out their first podcast 2 weeks ago, last week.
A week and a half or so, I think.
Yeah. But we put it up on the site yesterday. But so me and him, we both listened to the ForceCast about a year and a half ago when it was live, and they had chat rooms. And one night they decided to cancel the show, but several of us still showed up anyways, and we were chatting about just how cool it would be to have our own podcast. And so emails got exchanged, and so that's kind of how Faster and More Intense was born. Me and Matt, 2 weeks later, had put up the site, and we had no idea in the world how to make a podcast. And if you go back and listen to the original ones, they are extremely bad. So
as
don't
opposed
go
to the
back
current
and
ones, which are only mediocre.
Yes, which are just completely, totally average and mediocre. Yes, outstandingly mediocre.
Yeah,
yeah. So that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say, I never listened to the ForceCast to any great degree. It's been probably about a decade since I listened to it regularly. Almost a decade. I started listening in around 2007, Celebration 4, when I first really tried to enter the fandom in a, more social way. What with me, I joined Rebel Scum around that time, which is affiliated with the ForceCast.
Yeah.
That was back, I think it was Jason and Jimmy Mack were the hosts back then. So I've been pretty far removed. But it was always a really good podcast. I'm sad to see it go. It's the sort of thing where even if you didn't listen to it, you had to recognize it as sort of an institution.
Yeah.
And to see it go so suddenly and dramatically is really kind of a shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really was part of the reason I actually got back into Star Wars, because I didn't even know there were fan podcasts until I discovered First Coffee with Kenobi and then moved on to the ForceCast. And yeah, so really sad to see it go, and the ending of an era is one of the founding Star Wars podcasts.
Yeah. So pour one out for the ForceCast, wherever you are.
Yeah. Some Jawa juice or blue
Yeah.
milk. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should probably move on to droids now, huh?
Yeah, unless I just want to brag real quick.
Oh, brag.
Personal
Okay.
Star Wars experience in the last week. Yeah, as I think I've mentioned before, I live in New York. So when I have the chance, I try to meet celebrities. And I met another Star Wars celebrity this week. At the Apple Store down in Soho, I met Joel Edgerton, who, as you're seeing now, played young Uncle Owen in the prequels. So I got his autograph, got a nice photo with him. He was a really pleasant guy.
Yeah,
Great
I'm
meeting
looking
him.
at
I
that
actually
photo
saw.
now. He actually doesn't look pleased. I mean,
No,
you're
but
like totally happy, and he's like, I wonder how many more
in
of these I'm gonna have to do today.
Well, here's the thing. He showed up to the event like 5 minutes late, and he signed for everyone. And like he signed for me, went down the line, then knew I wanted the photo, so came back. So even if he's not smiling, he actually was a nice guy. And
Cool.
sometimes you just catch them at the wrong moment. I have I don't know. Do you watch Game of Thrones at all?
No, I don't.
I met one of the actors from that. As my little brother was with me. And just the way I timed my photo with him, he looks like he's talking. He looks kind of pissed off. But then if you look at my brother's photo, he's perfect smile, looks really well posed. So, just if you catch him at the wrong moment, it doesn't always look the best.
Yeah. We really need to start a segment like George's meetings with celebrities or something like that. George's celebrity list, because, yeah, it's like every single week you got somebody new.
I could write an article for you.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
All right. Well, now I think we can move into Droid Tales.
All right, now, yeah. Well, Droid Tales, yeah. I first saw this show when I was watching. We don't have TV, but I was house sitting for Guy, and it was on a Wednesday night, which was really happy. I was really happy because I got to see Rebels live on TV for a change, as opposed to the next day from iTunes. And so right after Rebels ended, they had this Lego Droid Tales thing episode, and I watched it, and it was just absolutely hilarious. I love the self-aware humor of it. It was just a really fun take on Star Wars. Then I kind of forgot about it until it just recently got released on DVD. So I went and bought the DVD, and so now we're reviewing it. But George, what did you think of this? Did you ever see it on TV?
I had never seen it on TV. I had not even clips, but some sites had just compiled images with the text on them. I think Dorkly had done it at one point, and so I'd seen a lot of the gags through that. And I really enjoyed what I saw there. There's a scene in the first episode where essentially, for those who haven't seen it, it's essentially R2 and 3PO, or 3PO really, retelling the events of the Star Wars saga. Not even always from his perspective. There's plenty of scenes he wasn't present for. But there's a scene where it's Qui-Gon first meeting Anakin. And then Watto is in the background trying to sell you all red flags.
Get your red flags right here! Red flags! Red flags!
Yeah, can't warn anyone
it
of
was so
danger
funny.
without red flags. So it's stuff like that, where it's the show kind of acknowledging the weaknesses of some of the prequels, and having some fun with it. And they do that with the original trilogy too. Though I think there's a little more to mock in the prequels. It's a little more effective there.
Yeah, that's one thing I liked about it, was that they did mock the original trilogy too, because a lot of the newer stuff that's come out is very original trilogy focused. It's kind of leaving the prequels in the dust, but that's another conversation. But there's definitely a lot to mock with the prequels, and they did that. But I also like that they mocked some of the things, with the original trilogy. So that balance I really liked.
Yeah, and the show's definitely at its strongest when it's mocking the movies. There are a few segments, one set in the Clone Wars and one set with the Rebels cast, that both, especially the Rebels one, I think, falls flat. Because that's just essentially a retelling of the episode R2 and 3PO were on, and you almost get the sense that there's only that Rebels segment in there because Lucasfilm said include the Rebels cast.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to sell
Which,
more
you
Lego
know,
Rebels toys. Sell.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's fun enough, I guess. I didn't even love the original episode, but I mean, the humor's still good when they can work with it. It feels a little shoehorned in.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? It's too bad though, because essentially, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi each pretty much get a whole episode to retell the narratives, whereas A New Hope has to split with the Rebels. So that's kind of a shame.
Yeah. And I think the show overall, it just really had some fun. It had a couple like overarching themes.
Yeah.
One of them was Admiral Akbar's Daisy May, which that was kind of fun. And then
And
also
I
was
just enjoyed because that's Anakin Starfighter from the Tartakovsky series.
yeah, I did notice that. I didn't mention that last night when we were discussing the Clone Wars, but I kind of was wondering. I wasn't 100% sure, but yeah,
It is,
it
yeah,
did look
because
similar.
Lego out of nowhere made a set out of it in like 2014, I think.
Huh.
Which really surprised basically everyone. But I went and bought pretty much immediately because I am a sucker. So
Yeah. Akbar was a great character in this. After
Akbar
they
was a lot
blow
of
up
fun.
the second Death Star, he's got a chalkboard, and he's like, "We are the bosses of blowing up Death Stars." It's so funny.
I also loved, the one thing, they're pretty fair with a lot of their their criticism, kind of gentle, but the one character who consistently just gets wrecked by the show is Jar Jar.
Yeah.
They
That
do
was-
not care at all to portray him in any sort of sympathetic light.
Yeah. I
Whenever
think
he
he's-
shows up, he gets shot or is just seen floating through space.
Yeah, has a moon land on him or something.
Yeah, all sorts of ridiculous shenanigans.
Mhm.
So that was fun. One of the things. Oh, you go on.
Well, I was just gonna say the one character that they didn't necessarily mock, but like literally stayed true to the character as opposed to like exaggerating everything was Lando.
I was about to say, yeah, Lando was a lot of fun. I think there was some gentle mocking. Oh, it's never my fault. But you're right. Lando was a lot of fun. Great seeing him. Great having Billy D voice him.
Okay, I was wondering about that because he sounded extremely similar to how he sounds in Rebels.
Yeah,
So I was wondering if it was him.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about was the voice cast for the show. Because they go and they get Anthony Daniels as 3PO as they always do.
Yeah.
They got Billy D as Lando, which was huge because in the last few episodes, Lando has a pretty big role to play, and you want to have someone good at voicing him. And then Tom Kane is Yoda and the narrator, but then basically everyone else is, I think, either new to the Star Wars franchise or isn't their usual role. And that, I didn't love the voice cast a lot of the time. I thought that if they could have, they should have gone with the Clone Wars actors for when they could. The thing that amazed me was that they didn't get the Rebels voice cast to voice the Rebels.
Yeah, that was a little interesting.
Because I'm like, the show is currently running. Even if it's
Just
not
hop
the Lego
over to
group,
Lucasfilm for a day and just,
Yeah.
they're already over there.
And I mean, some of them did a pretty passable job of, imitating the voice. Others weren't as close. And really, with the exception of Freddie Prinze Jr., I get them, like Freddie Prinze Jr., David Oyelowo, I get why they're not getting, these big name voice actors to do it. But I mean, not to disparage Steve Blum, but I mean, he is a voice actor. This is what he does. So it's felt kind of strange that at least like him and, say Taylor Gray, they couldn't get in.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? It was
Yeah.
still enjoyable, the majority of the show. Veers got his time in the sun, which was
Yep.
nice.
Yeah.
Kind of taking advantage of the fact he is the one Imperial to survive the movies.
Yeah, now, was that supposed to be Veers there at the end? Or is that just a random
They-
Imperial
they-
officer?
No, it's Veers, because I wasn't sure when he showed up in the 5th episode. I looked through the credits, and then they say specifically General Veers, and then in the crawl opening narration for the last episode, they specifically mentioned Veers by name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure myself, but it is Veers. He's fun.
If only he wasn't saddled with those stormtroopers who can't hit anything.
Yeah, once
That's
again,
also something
Veers
I
actually
like,
appears
is
pretty
they,
competent. He's got his stuff in order, builds a
Yep.
big battle droid to try to take out the Falcon.
Yep.
And it isn't until Akbar and Daisy May show up with that ridiculous gun that he gets beat.
Yeah.
And even then, he doesn't die. Veers is still in the Lego universe up and kicking, baby. So,
Yeah, can't get rid of Veers.
Nope. So, someone up there likes me.
Well, I think this show was produced before. Was this show produced before Veers Watch?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. Yeah.
But, I mean, the
So-
fact that he's showing up, someone up there likes. Yeah, it premiered back in July. And then the last
Well, there's
episode...
possible that there are some other Veers sympathizers, like yourself,
Oh,
within
there
the
mu-
ranks of Lucasfilm.
Certainly there must be. Yeah, I'm surprised they actually did like an episode a month from July to November, which I didn't realize. That's a interesting way to do it.
Yeah. Especially since I doubt it took them very long to produce these episodes.
Yeah, it was definitely a deliberate thing just to kind of stretch it out. So hey, it was fun enough. The last episode was like 2 weeks before Veers Watch became a thing. So
Yep.
that's too bad. The important
Yep,
thing is
too
I
bad.
didn't miss a Veers appearance when it was airing.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been really embarrassing if, Veers Watch just completely overlooked, this Droid Tales.
I mean, I think in the description I say the new canon, and this is assuredly not canon.
Well,
It's
in
assuredly not
C-3PO's eyes, it's new canon.
canon. It's like maybe its own little Lego canon, sure, but
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that chip that R2 put into C-3PO, apparently R2 saved his memory from being wiped. Maybe R2 just made up the whole thing and stuck it in 3PO's head.
who knows? Yeah, I mean, I just remember when the they announced recently the Freemaker Chronicles, a new ongoing Lego series, and people were asking, is this canon? And Pablo Hidalgo, just in a mass tweet response, tweeted to like 20 people with the exact same response, like, it's made of Legos, watch it because it's good, not because it's canon.
Yeah.
So yes, this was not canon. Freemaker Chronicles will not be canon. But if you needed me or Pablo to tell you that, that's too bad.
Be nice. Be nice. Yeah, but that would kind of be my recommendation for this series. It was fun. It was enjoyable to watch. Don't watch it because you think it's canon. Watch it because it's Legos and it's fun, and Legos are fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's got a good, like you said, self-depreciating sense of humor. Has fun with the series. It's obviously marketed towards kids, and there's probably some stuff that kids will appreciate more than adults. But at the same time, if you're a dedicated fan of the series, you'll enjoy some of the digs it has at, the narrative shortcomings of the films. So there's something for everyone to enjoy, really. Don't, skip it because it's Lego. It's still worthwhile.
Well, I think that's pretty much all we got to say about it. Do you wanna recap any hilarious moments that you liked that we haven't mentioned here?
Well, I mentioned, I think the best example of its sort of sense of humor is, Watto, Hawk, and Red Flags. Really, the sort of thing is if I explain the jokes to you, when you actually watch it, it just won't be as funny.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I got the one. I think that's a pretty good one to entice you into watching. And the rest you'll have to experience for yourself.
Yep, and I think that that needs to be the title for this episode too. Get your red flags.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe your middle name. Well, no, nope. That's another joke, and I'm not going to spoil the joke.
Oh, yeah. All right. Don't spoil the joke. Okay. Well, next up is going to be our conversation that we had with Henry Hammond about the 2003 Clone Wars Gennady Tartakovsky series.
So hello there, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Clone Wars. Note the absence of the because we are not talking about the CGI series. We are talking about the OG 2003 to 2005 animated microseries by Gennady Tartakovsky. I know this has a really fond place in a lot of fans' hearts. Lord knows it doesn't mine. So let's get right into it. With me is Shiloh, as he is always, and Henry Hammond. Henry, good to have you on.
Hello there.
So, how about you
Okay, wait, hold on. Before we go forward, can we get that one more time, please? Because that was quite good.
Hello there.
Okay, continue, George.
All right. So, Henry, how about you start us off? Just tell us your first experience with this original 2003 microseries.
Well, get up from the very start. I first read about it in Star Wars Insider, and I kind of reacted with mild indifference at that point because I was fairly disappointed with Attack of the Clones. So I didn't really have much of an opinion to start with. But when I saw the first episode on TV, I thought it looked pretty interesting. I was kind of thrown by the... How long were the episodes? They were like 5 or 10 minutes long.
It depends on the season. Seasons 1 and 2 were, about 3 to 5, 3 to 7. But then for season 3...
Yeah, I'm talking about the very beginning, though.
Yeah, 3 to 5 or so.
Because, it looked very interesting. It was built up and everything. It kind of felt like the opening of the Force of Rebels episode. And then I was getting ready to get going, and then it just ended.
Yep.
But it got me hooked. And I was very interested. Yeah, so, let's see. The first episode, nothing really happens. They kind of just set off.
Yeah, it was very much a table-setting episode.
The launch of the war, I guess. Then yeah. And I got really into it because it was very different than what I was expecting. I mean, obviously, being that it was from Tartakovsky, it was very similar to Samurai Jack. So,
yep.
Very heavy action-oriented, but very minimal in dialogue, and it had a really great action, a lot of quiet moments, a lot of great build-up, so I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Shiloh, when did you first see it?
It was a long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was very young, even younger than I am now. I was like 7, maybe 8.
Mm-hmm.
We got it in Netflix. So Netflix was around, I think. I don't know how long Netflix has been around.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we got the DVD of it, so it had been out on DVD, and so I have vague memories of seeing very small bits of it, and then until I just recently watched it yesterday, and I didn't know about how short the episodes were or anything because I just watched it on YouTube, straight shot all the way through.
Yeah, that's the thing. You talk about it as a TV show, but in actuality, it comes off as more of a movie, really.
It basically,
the whole thing's 2
the way
hours.
I watched it was a movie, and that's kind of how it felt. But overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was for me the most fun part of it was just seeing how much of it made it into the Clone Wars, and that was really interesting for me. But it was definitely a fun take on what the Clone Wars might have been if it didn't take the path of what it did in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree. I mean, when this came out, it was...
In many ways, it kind of felt like a huge montage for the first season. Okay.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, when it first came out, it was in the middle of the huge Clone Wars push. With comics, novels. It was, while in universe, the Clone Wars were raging between episodes 2 and 3. And so, I mean, at that point, the CGI series was just, a glimmer in George Lucas's eye. So this was definitely something to get excited for. But Henry, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of contrast it in terms of storytelling with the Clone Wars, because this one it felt like kind of a montage of the entire event of the Clone Wars, in that, at least for the first season, it wasn't so heavily focused on characters as it was just kind of as a larger scale story that they were telling in a short period of time. There was character development, much more so in the second season.
Yes.
And I didn't remember actually 3 seasons. I thought it was just 2. I thought the second and third season were just one thing, but I guess I was wrong about that.
Yeah, and for me, what I saw like the most character development of the entire thing was like, should we make Anakin a knight? Yes, we should make Anakin a knight. Anakin's now a knight. He's now the savior of the galaxy and rescuing everyone. Yay! That was like literally the most of character development I really saw in it.
Actually, the scene that led into that scene did it for me, where, Obi-Wan's scolding Anakin as usual, and finally Anakin's just had it and compares him with Qui-Gon Jinn, and they had a very human little moment there.
Yeah, no, that's a very good moment. Well, one of the things I feel as if I have to mention, if we're talking character development, is that this is what introduced the character of General Grievous.
Yeah.
Brilliantly.
Yes, very much so. And I've written about this on my site. Grievous, for the longest time, maybe even still is, was my favorite character in the whole series. And that was wholly because of his appearances in Clone Wars. Grievous, I think, as a character, peaked before Revenge of the Sith.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Because he's so amazing in this. And even Revenge of the Sith, he wasn't like, he gets taken out by Obi-Wan, but it's fun. But then, I think one of the great tragedies of the CGI Clone Wars series is how they handled Grievous. And, maybe to an extent that was what Lucas wanted to do with him. But I think fans will agree that Lucas, for all the great ideas he has, is far from infallible.
Mm-hmm. And what I really liked is, intentional or not, they set up in Revenge of the Sith, Grievous always running, when Count Dooku gives him that little speech saying, you got to play a war of attrition here. If you're ever in a situation where you can't win, just go ahead and run. And I thought that scene was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we should definitely talk about his introduction, because it was probably one of the best moments of Warsdom.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly
that was the moment
agree.
that got me hooked.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm talking about quiet moments, they took full advantage of that. It starts off with just a large-scale battle. We kind of see glimpses of Grievous. We see his foot. We see him from behind. We don't see him.
Mm-hmm.
But we see that they're just cornered, and they're all completely on edge. They're terrified, and there's just long, really tense.
It's incredibly long, actually. For such a short TV show overall, they devoted a really long time.
And that's definitely, of the first series, one of the longer chapters. It says 3 to 7 minutes for season 1 and season 2. I'm pretty sure that's the single 7-minute chapter. And it uses it all very well. It's no small task to introduce, one of the faces of the next movie. And I know I watched that, I believe, live. Maybe I watched it on StarWars.com the next day. But I was instantly taken by the character, because he was so cool. Just making mincemeat out of Jedi. And I think it's worth noting that, he takes on 6 Jedi there? 7, if you count Barrick, I think. Right?
And several masters, yeah.
Yeah, and then among them you have Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shakti, who I actually think this series treats really well in season 3. Aayla Secura, from the EU,
Kakruk, obviously, his name.
Yep, Kakruk makes an appearance, and he originally died there before he got retconned back to life. Shaggy, the blatant Shaggy ripoff from Scooby-Doo.
Homage.
Yes. I'm still bitter that they never made a Shaggy figure. I figured quick repaint, maybe a new head sculpt. He's right there. And and I'll be talking about this later, but they made a bunch of collectibles based off the microseries, but he never happened, and it kind of broke my heart a little. But yeah, anyway, Grievous, just what a boss. And then I think the only thing that tops his first appearance is his showdown with the ARC troopers immediately in the next chapter.
But it wasn't immediate, was it? They just left us hanging there for a
Oh
season.
yeah, for about a year. But
Oh wow, there was that much time
They
between
might
these?
have been there.
oh yeah, they I will take a look at the time lapse, but they kept you waiting for months between the seasons. And I think between 2 and 3 was longer. Because when it was first announced, it was announced as a 2-season thing. But then for season 3, that was announced later. And if you know anything about like the backstory of it, originally Chapter 20 wasn't going to feature Grievous. He was introduced at the behest of Lucas, I believe. Originally, it was going to have Dirge coming back. And then...
Now, who is Dirge? Is that weird
yeah,
half plant?
He's the
half
bounty
good
hunter.
guy
yeah, he's not Plant. But let's talk about Dirge, because he's one of the big...
I am Groot. Is that... No.
Well, no, not at all, actually. I guess with the arms, maybe. But, you know, Dirge is one of the big characters from the Clone Wars multimedia project that got completely and utterly shafted by the CGI series.
Well, I think kind of with good reason, because I don't know how well he fits into any other kind of thing we know about Star Wars. He has some interesting properties there, just say that we don't exactly have precedent for in Star Wars.
Well, maybe not. I mean, here's the thing. One of the things that the Clone Wars series does, you know, quite obviously, is make everything 160% over the top. And I think, you know, to levy this claim that we've never seen anything like Dirge in Star Wars before is, you know, true, but you also need to consider it in the context of the series, where Mace Windu can take on an entire droid army single-handedly without his lightsaber.
Without a lightsaber.
Yeah. Well, that was fast. It was really satisfying to see, like, Mace Windu be tearing up super battle droids with his bare hands.
Oh,
yeah.
I do not disagree in the slightest. I mean, this, like I've said, this series is like the Jedi at their most powerful. The only thing that I think could come close to Force users at this level is maybe the Force Unleashed. But I mean, otherwise, think of the big moments where it's like Anakin using the Force in the Clone Wars. You know, like what's his most badass moment? Like holding the brother and sister in check.
The Force use saber mastery.
Let's see, holding the what in check?
The brother and sister in check. Like that's meant to be this huge, epic, badass moment.
Yeah,
and it's just like
but I'm not sure if that really count. I wouldn't really count that because that's not a normal occurrence. He's literally in a Twilight kind of weird, I don't know.
I mean, fair enough, but
that was a shred.
Yeah, but that's the point. You know, the Jedi are obscenely overpowered. Everything's over the top. And Dirge appeared in the comics and I think a single young reader book as well. And in those, he's actually given much more of a character, because he doesn't say, like, he laughs in the Clone Wars. Then that's about it. And don't get me wrong, it's a really cool laugh. Like, I liked it. But yeah, he's given much more of a smart alecky personality in the comics, where his regeneration is not portrayed as quite so ridiculous. And there was talks of him coming into the new series. Filoni at one point at least considered it. But if I recall, when they were talking about it, they would have changed up his character somewhat significantly. And so they decided to just can him, and they created new characters in his place. I think actually including Cad Bane. So not a complete watch there.
You just ruined Cad Bane for me. Thank you, George.
Mm-hmm. You got Cad Bane instead of Dirge. And honestly, I love Cad Bane, but I'm still bitter Dirge never showed up in the CGI series.
Yeah. it did kind of throw me there when he was like leading a bunch of what are they, black IG-88s with lances.
IG Lancer droids. Yeah.
Yeah, IG Lancer droids against clones who also have lances.
Well,
Would
that's
have been nice if that made it into the Clone Wars.
yeah. Well, and let's just talk about this as a symptomatic of the whole series. Like we said, the series is 100% over the top. Essentially, Tartakovsky thought, what do I think would look cool? And if he thought it would look cool, he threw it in the series. Which is why, like you said, you get IG Lancer droids led by Dirge going, like, jousting against a bunch of clones on speeder bikes that look like clone helmets. Like,
Well, that kind of goes with the George Lucas philosophy of, when he said in some interview way back when about why he created Stormtroopers riding do-bags to give everything sort of a random real-world feeling, even if it didn't make any logical sense.
and that
It was whimsy. It looked neat.
That's fair, and that's the thing. It looks neat. I think it looks cool as hell. Does it make any sense from like a military perspective? Probably not. No, but it's in the moment really freaking cool to see.
It was pretty fun.
And you can't argue that apparently those IG Lancer droids are effective as hell. So, hey.
If they could take out walkers, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun fact, kind of off topic.
I think that the series, it's fun, but I think it's exactly where it should be, and that is in the Legends category, where we can have these really fun, off-the-wall stories with really cool-looking scenes, but yet don't necessarily have to rectify that to our view of, this whole storyline of Star Wars.
I agree with you to an extent, but I think you can argue that the CGI series has some equally ridiculous stuff in it. The episode that immediately comes to mind is like the Gulliver's Travels episode starring R2 and 3PO. That's got some pretty ridiculous...
Well, that one isn't too bad. I mean, okay. The underground thing. Okay, them going to the planet with the small people, that's not too bad. I mean...
It's got the freaking Wizard of... It's
totally viable in the world.
It's got the Wizard of Oz. Like...
Well, that part was a little hokey, but...
Right,
and so I'm saying... Zillow Beast, if we're gonna...
Oh, exactly. Like, I mean...
Hey, don't knock the Zillow Beast.
It's Godzilla.
Palpatine's approval ratings plummet.
Like, and here's the thing. I think you're right. If you take Clone Wars at face value, it does not jive with the rest of not just the new canon, but even the EU. It was clearly a little more over the top, with just the style of the Jedi fighting, how it was all going down. Something was off. But, at the time, as an animated series on TV, not only was it canon, it was a little more canon than everything else.
Yeah.
Because it had Lucas's more direct oversight. And so the question then would be how to rectify that with the canon you knew. And the theory I saw that I kind of liked was, you know how in the Mace Windu scene, there's the little kid watching the whole action go down?
Ooh, I can see where this is going, and I like it.
The idea was that everything in the series was more or less a retelling of events that actually happened from an outsider's perspective, and because it was someone else's telling of it, it was deliberately over the top.
Right,
it's a tall tale sort of series.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I think is similar to what they're going for with the Legends tag, that it's it's a legend of something that happened, and legends get distorted over time. They're based on facts, but they slowly get distorted and turn into myths.
Suppose another series. His name Legend became myth.
I mean, to put a precise example on it, Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor, with delightfully ridiculous title, by the way, that does the same thing, where it kind of implies that the entire novel, with the exception of like one or two, epilogue, prologue sequences, is like an in-universe retelling of events that actually happened. So it's a little over the top, kind of hand waves anyone acting slightly out of character. And so I thought, that's a pretty good way to look at this series. Because I think you're right. The basic story behind everything here is perfectly sound. When you describe the plot, nothing is ridiculous. It's only when you look at everything in action where it starts to, wonder, hold on, this is a little ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I liked about the series was it was actually surprisingly funny in certain instances. My favorite part was when Obi-Wan is sitting in his World War I trench outside of the city, and Cody comes up to him and is like, "Yep, we're right on schedule. Only 3 more months to go."
So we've been in here a month already.
Yes, sir. Right on schedule.
He was just so matter of fact. It was great, and I really liked the clone troopers from this. I mean, they were shown being competent, but also
get
really
into that because Cody this was again his first appearance in any major work, and I think he makes a good impression. But the clones here are incredibly different than the clones you see in the Clone Wars. In that, they don't. The idea of them getting names hadn't really come around yet. So it's all trooper, sergeant, commander. But at the same time, you're right, Shiloh. They're portrayed as like ruthlessly effective. Especially, my personal favorite, the ARC troopers, who get a chance to shine really early on in the series.
Yeah. And they look like legitimate special forces operators, running around with the hand signals and everything. Yep. Going into the deserted city with no one else around it. That scene, that whole action scene was I thought was really well done.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people have a lot of love for the ARC troopers. Lord knows Hasbro's made 8,6 figures of them, most of which I own. But one of the things, that the ARC troopers, I was going to say, are one of the things that got moved forward to the new Clone Wars series. And that was something that got brought forward and changed a little bit. Because originally the ARC troopers weren't just an invention of this animated series back in 2003. They also showed up in the comics, where they were revealed to be like unaltered clones of Jango Fett. Where all the other clones...
Yeah, they were specifically bred, right?
Specifically bred, because all the other clones, the idea had, some mental changes, more willing to follow orders, stuff like that. Whereas the ARC troopers, the only thing they changed was the aging rate. So the idea would be that, at least in the comics, you'd see them talking back a little more, being more of a smartass. But now in the CGI series, all the clones have more of a personality. So the fact that they're unaltered isn't as big a deal. But they basically completely changed them from this specifically bred group of clones to essentially a rank you can attain. As Echo and Fives do.
Yeah, so more of a merit based as opposed to just being genetically modified to be that, which I think makes sense when you start giving the clones more personality. I think it makes more sense for them, because I think genetically engineering clones to do specific duties and giving them personality at the same time, I think that kind of contradicts each other. Because you're you're making them to be this specific person, but yes, they're also getting a personality. Whereas if you make them all have their own personalities and then some of them just naturally, specialize in different things, I think that flows a little better. Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I think one of the things that I think is a strength of the CGI series is that by that point, Revenge of the Sith had come out. The world was a little more fully formed. And so it could retroactively go back and fix what didn't necessarily work as well in the original, project run of the Clone Wars. And I think the clones was a pretty big fix. I would definitely say that despite... Well, Grievous is a big change. He's not a big fix. Grievous is much worse. But I think the clones were changed for the better. Just as characters, even if they're not quite as cool on the level of, say, the ARC Troopers in this.
One of the changes they made to Grievous, though, that I like is him not being able to use the Force. Because, I mean, in this series, he uses the Force, which...
What?
He does not.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he puts out his hand and, like, Force shoves a Jedi at one point.
No, he, like, shoves them really hard. He doesn't have... He does not have Force sensitivity in this.
Oh, okay.
No.
It's just another example of just being...
Because I saw that and I was like,
okay.
oh, wow, they really changed some stuff.
Yeah,
By his
Grievous...
skill level on the cartoon, you may as well think he has the Force powers, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just really, really well trained.
Okay.
So, we've talked a bit about what got brought forward. I don't know if... What do you guys think some of the biggest things that got brought forward from this series to the CGI series are? Because there are a lot of them. So let's think what you think may be the most important.
Well, the character designs for sure have the same kind of angular look. They look similar. Like I said, when I first saw trailers for Star Wars: The Clone Wars in 2008, I thought it was the same animation group. I thought they just turned CG. It took me a while to spot the differences later, but I thought it was more or less the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, like Obi-Wan's clone trooper outfit, definitely inspired in the CGI one, how Obi-Wan had a clone trooper outfit. So did Anakin.
Yeah, for the first two seasons of the Clone Wars, they were dressed very much like they were in the series.
Yeah.
And not to mention almost the entirely same voice cast.
Yeah, with a few big changes. The voice actor for Anakin, I think, is probably the most notable change, and I think everyone kind of agrees that Matt Lanter did probably the better job of the two. Because I think the most important thing Lanter did was not try to sound like Hayden Christensen, instead do his own thing, and that really paid off. Then new clone trooper voice actors, all that. But yeah, they were definitely smart enough to keep James Arnold Taylor, which was a very wise move.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
Yeah. I guess, let's see, was there any, battle... Well,
Mon Calamari, maybe.
Well, I can think of kind of... What?
Mon Calamari, maybe.
Mon Calamari.
Yeah. There was that. There was the... definitely the Mon Calamari. The Christophsis arc also kind of reminded me of, the Christophsis arc in the Clone Wars reminded me of that city siege that they had.
On Munilist?
Yeah, complete with ray shields and everything.
I see that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not as direct, but you're definitely right. There's definitely some inspiration there, I see.
Several aliens were the same, I noticed. I don't know if they existed beforehand or not, but... that a lot of the Jedi Masters were the same, which was cool.
I mean, the biggest
I think we're
thing...
overlooking also that the Clone Wars, unless I'm mistaken, she came in the comics first, also introduced us to a event.
Yeah. Yep.
I think the comics edged out the Clone Wars, but at that point, I think she's fair to mention, because her and Dirge were essentially created with novels, comics, and the microseries in mind, which is why, Ventress's death, air quotes, on Yavin 4 is a fall. It's left ambiguous, so she could be brought back in other media while still giving Anakin a definite victory. And by the way, that's an incredibly well-done lightsaber fight. As much credit as we give Grievous for kicking all the butt, Ventress certainly holds her own here. No.
Yeah.
The bit with them standing in the rain, just staring each other down for a full minute was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad I finally figured out that arena that she first fought in the beginning, because I downloaded when I downloaded the mod, the one big all-encompassing mod for Star Wars Battlefront 2, it included a map of that arena, and I didn't know what it was for. It was a pretty lame map in the game. I mean, it was really boring to play.
But now you know.
But now I know. So that was really interesting. So I like that.
And let's see, there was also a nice little foreshadowing scene of Anakin becoming Vader, which I thought
Yes.
Yeah.
I better than the way we did it in the Clone Wars. It was much more subtle and just much more implied as to what was going to happen, as opposed to I now know what's going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm. And that's set really nicely up by that talk we were having earlier, with the Jedi Council when they decided to knight Anakin, that he never had to look in the mirror. So it's a really nice payoff, a few episodes down the line. All right, I think we're kind of reaching, towards the end where we want to be with this. But the one last question I want to ask is, we've talked about a lot of stuff that we've liked. What's your favorite thing from the series we haven't mentioned yet?
Oh. Well. It's a very brief little moment. I caught it right away, even as a kid. The scene during that whole montage of Anakin after he's not going off being a hero and everything, he comes back to Padme and reveals the scar he got, which happened off screen, and then you just see outside home and the light goes out.
Yep.
Yeah, which was very heavily implied to be the conception.
What can you say? Chicks dig scars. But yeah, you're right. Very fun moment. And definitely the sort of thing that would go over a kid's head. Very tastefully done. So you're right. Good on them for that. Very well done scene.
Well, I mean, speaking of kind of heavier subjects here, all the men of a particular race being turned into mutants and then having to go back to their families and have them accept them. I mean, that's kind of a pretty heavy topic here. I mean, it's like, it's kind of a sad story.
Something out of Anakin.
Yeah. Is that your favorite moment, Shiloh?
No. My favorite moment, I don't know. I think we already mentioned it with the one with Cody and Obi-Wan. But I think I'm gonna have to say after Anakin and Obi-Wan, I forget what they're talking about, but after they say something, their usual banter, and it's after Anakin gets knighted, they're in that hut, and then all of a sudden they just burst out laughing like friends. And it was really cool because it wasn't something we saw very much in the Clone Wars. We may have never even seen something, where they're so friendly, and I just really liked that moment.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Just think of it as reconnaissance in Force, your favorite.
Yeah.
Nope.
But they just laugh. Their laugh was just so genuine.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Nope. I'll give my two favorite moments that we missed. There's a scene, I think it's chapter 22, where it's the Separatist general hyping up his fort, the absolute army of Jedi that will be needed to breach it. That is a really well done, great build up, hilarious scene. That I think, as with a lot of stuff we mentioned, really takes advantage of the fact that they had those longer episodes, so they could, devote that time to a gag or to idle chatter. Wasn't always so 1 to 100 in terms of dialogue. Then the other moment we haven't mentioned is during the attack on Coruscant, Sase Tin boarding the Separatist ship. Completely ridiculous moment. Absolutely delightful. I love it. Hasbro made an action figure of him in that armor, and it made me very happy.
And with that, Clone Wars goes into Legends Obscurity.
Yep, the obscurity of Legends. But it's no longer obscure because we just talked about it. So
because there's always a little bit of truths.
Yep.
Exactly. So for our five listeners out there, it's not as obscure anymore.
Yep. And for the last 34 minutes, it is not obscure. Now it is.
Well, all right. I think that'll do it for that segment. Coming up next, I think we'll just be talking about next week.
Chewie, get us out of here!
And that's going to do it for us this week at Faster and More Intense. Coming up next week, we'll be kind of back to the more usual stuff. We have Rebels next week is going to be the Forgotten Droid, a Chopper-centric episode. And Shiloh, I know you're just hyped about that.
I mean, Chopper is like Gollum. You watch The Lord of the Rings, and the whole time, all you're thinking about is, when is Gollum gonna finally die? That's the way I feel when I watch Rebels. How much longer till Chopper gets killed?
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm not saying I disagree. I think it's sorry that everyone feels that way. Anyone. I'm sure Chopper has a couple of fans out there.
Yeah.
Then also next week, the finale of Kanan. Kanan 12.
Yeah.
So that'll end of an era there. The first ongoing Marvel series to wrap up. But out of the ashes of Kanan will rise Poe Dameron a few weeks later, so that's not too much of a tragedy.
No, I think that'll be a really interesting story.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the finale.
Yeah, Force Awakens era.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, and that's what we're going to be doing next week. But also, starting on Monday the 21st, we're going to be releasing an article a day, and until we run out of people. And it's basically going to be some of the hosts over here at Faster and More Intense and others from other sites, basically talking about their experiences of Star Wars, with Star Wars, I should say. Like nostalgia plays a big role in how we see Star Wars, and kind of the media that we grew up on, and to what we've been exposed to, really shapes how we see Star Wars and through what lens we look at the fandom. Like for me, I grew up on the Clone Wars, mentioned that a few times, so that's kind of my gold standard when I think about Star Wars. It's the Clone Wars is what I compare everything else to. Other people who were, who saw the original trilogy as a kid, that's kind of what they see, Star Wars through. So, should be interesting. We got a lot of different age groups, so we're going to get a good cross-section of people and how they view Star Wars. So, it should, as to quote Mr. George Costel, it should be a party.
Indeed. But the one last thing we need to do, as you may be aware, Rebels is wrapping up pretty soon. After the Forgotten Droid, you have the Mystery of Chopper Base, and then it's the 2-part finale, which is airing on the same night. So we only got really 3 more weeks of Rebels coverage left. And so we will be scrambling to fill segments, and I have decided to get ahead on that. For one of the episodes we have, hopefully right after Rebels ends, we're going to be doing a Looking at Legends segment where we'll be talking about something from the expanded universe. And I have decided to just pick what we're going to be reading today. And how we're going to do that. And Shiloh is completely unaware that he is responsible for choosing, actually.
I am?
Yes, right in front of me, I have the Star Wars Essential Reader's Companion, which, as of its writing, contained every, reference to every piece of Star Wars prose in the expanded universe. So this is a huge book, and Shiloh, what you're going to do is, the book has about 400 or so something pages. In between pages 5 to 469 are the works. It's ordered chronologically, so the earlier you go, the earlier in the timeline the work will be from. So you'll have a rough sense of where you're picking from. But of course, some areas got covered much more heavily than others, so there's still plenty of room to maneuver here. And a few of the pages will have more than one thing on it, so if that comes up, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we could get like a pretty major expanded universe release here, or we could get an article that appeared in one issue of the Star Wars Adventure Journal back in the 90s, and Shiloh and I will be scrambling to try to find a copy of it, which is why I kind of wanted all this head time. Hopefully you'll pick something at the start of a series. If
this
not,
is a lot of responsibility here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's your number?
Well, all right. So recently in chemistry class, this is going to be a long story, so just we have been looking at how you find out the ideal gas law, which is pressure times volume equals number of moles of solute times R, which is some weird number, times temperature. And to use temperature, we have to get kelvins, and we have to transfer it from Celsius to kelvins. And do you know how you transfer Celsius to Kelvin? You add 273. So I'm going to go with 273.
All right. Oh, okay. So we have 3 options here. And one of them would actually be really convenient for me. But I'm not going to tell you which. So are you going to pick 1, 2, or 3?
All right. Well, seeing as how at my time right now it is 2:15, that's closest to 2, so let's go with 2.
Okay. You have selected the short story Easy Credits from West End Games, the Star Wars Adventure Journal number 9, published in February of 1996. It looks like...
Was that the easy one?
Oh, no, the easy one would have been Luke Skywalker in the Shadows of Mindor. That was number 3.
Oh, we even talked about that last night, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And so now we're not talking about Luke Skywalker, we're talking about Easy Credits. You know, if you want, though, we can still do Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor.
No, we chose...
We can do both.
Yeah.
You don't have to be limited to one.
Well, we'll see if we can find easy credits.
Yeah, we'll have to track down... Hopefully it'll be available online somewhere. If not, we'll have to get a copy of Star Wars Adventure Journal number 9. And it looks like this guy, Cien Scon, actually shows up in a few short stories. So who knows? Maybe we'll bump out his story a little bit.
All right. Well, yeah, easy credits. That's the title. So I guess we have 3 weeks to get this, huh? Or 4 weeks actually.
About 4. We got until April. But you got to track it down. You got to read it, and you have to figure out what you want to talk about. So get hyped.
Yeah, write a university level paper on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was fascinating, George. And I think that's going to do it for us today.
Yep. So from Faster and More Intense, I'm George Costel. That was Shiloh Camrath.
Yep. And you can always send us an email at fasterandmoreintense.com, fasterandmoreintense@gmail.com, sorry. We're on Facebook at Facebook/fasterandmoreintense, on Twitter at FMI Podcasting. We're now on iTunes at Faster and More Intense Podcasting, and on YouTube at, you guessed it, Faster and More Intense Podcasting.
All right. Thanks for listening, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Star Wars is the exclusive trademark of Lucasfilm Limited. All Star Wars names and sounds are the exclusive copyright of Lucasfilm or parent company. All content generated on this site is the exclusive intellectual property of Faster and More Intense.